Okay.
Yay!
All right. Hopefully you're all seeing the PowerPoint screen. If any of the Zoom people aren't seeing it, let me know. And I think I've met most or all of you. My name's Cindy Schmidt, and I work at UNMC. I'm sort of a searching nerd or geek. There's nothing that makes my day quite as much as getting a new search tip. I'll run into Roxanne and my supervisor and say, "Did you know this?" And because I know she'll share it, at least to some extent, my excitement. So today I thought I'd just go through some of the things that really helped me over the last 15 to 20 years that I've been a librarian in searching PubMed. Things that I didn't know initially and somebody told me or I discovered. So, and I'm going to use several searches as examples. And one type of search that can be problematic is the non-something search. So you want something that isn't about surgery, but that's about a drug that's used most frequently in surgery. And how do you get to that literature? So one of the things that can be really helpful is nodding out the surgery as a major concept. And that doesn't, you probably don't want to knot the surgical headings out as mesh because they might also discuss, use in other settings. But if the surgery is a major concept, and this isn't like a really comprehensive search, but one of those where they want most of the literature, then I think you're safe doing this. Now, surgery is a little bit of a complicated topic, I found. And for instance, when somebody called and they said, I want to search for articles about pituitary surgery, and I looked up pituitary/surgery as a heading, and I did a search, and there were so few articles. And then I realized, oh, pituitary diseases with a surgery subheading. So whenever you're doing this surgery, I think you really need to think about that whether there is a surgery heading for it, like pituitary surgery as a heading itself, whether the pituitary as an anatomical heading also has a surgery subheading, and then that diseases heading. And MESH is really, I think the indexing is really disease focused. Have you all found that? And it'll usually be the diseases heading with the surgery subheading, but not always. So if you OR those three together, that'll get you there. But then on this, we want just any surgery with the profs. We're not focusing on specific organ, which that makes it a little more difficult. And it took me a while to realize that you could go to the top of the tree, and although it doesn't offer a surgery subheading, you can just put it in. So the top of the diseases tree is diseases category, and you can type in the surgery subheading. The top of the anatomy tree is anatomy category. You can type in the surgery subheading, and it'll explode and get you everything narrower that has those. And that's been really useful to me. So I'm going to go through this search real quickly. So you, of course, change the mesh drop down to get your mesh headings. I'm going to start with my drug, epoprostenol. I don't know if that's really how it's pronounced.
Whoever makes up these names. I just get so frustrated some days.
I know how the really old drugs were pronounced when I went, but the new ones, it's like all guesswork. Sometimes I ask my pharmacy students, so how do you say this? So I might use the heading in general, or I might go to therapeutic use and then add that to the search builder. And then scroll up. And I always forget what these the broad terms are. So I always search for kidney diseases and then go to kidney diseases, go down to find the tree, and then get the diseases category that way, because I always forget what they are. And then I would pick to not that. I would restrict it to a major topic and add it to the search builder. And I'm not going to type until I'm done adding things, because it tends to take out the typing if you're not Have you noticed that lately you can go back without it taking terms out?
Yes, I discovered that just the other day.
That was a huge revelation for me. So then I might search for kidney to find the anatomic term, and scroll down to find anatomy category. Restrict that to a major topic. I'm going to OR that to the diseases category and add it to a search builder. And then for some reason, I do remember surgical procedures operative as a term. And I search for that and I make that a major term, or that to the other things I'm nodding out and add it to the search builder. And then I can make the little, I'm so glad they made that window expandable so that you can
keep adding.
Yeah. And then I've typed in my surgery subheadings, as you can see, for the diseases and the anatomy category. And right now, epoprostenol is a mesh term. I just wanted to point that out. I haven't changed that to a major term. Okay. So I'm going to go ahead and I fix the parentheses. As you probably know, if you use the search builder, if you OR things together at the end, you always have to fix the parentheses. Because it assumes you're kind of going with an ANDing strategy. So I've got one set around the epoprostenol and one set around the ORed together surgery terms. And then search PubMed. And I get 2,219 results for this. And at this point, if I had someone who really wanted to focus, I might say, gee, I'm going to change epoprostenol to major too. So I would change that and search. Oh, I'm going to go back one. And that gets me down to 1,098. And most of them do. Still a lot. And I probably would limit it by language and by humans and to a few years before I send it out. But, any comments on that or other things you wanted to mention about mesh? I've got a few more mesh things later. But. Okay. Okay, the other thing I didn't know when I started as a librarian, which I'm sure you all know already, but PubMed isn't all indexed. And no. And I made the mistake of doing a mesh search, thinking I was doing this brilliant, very thorough search and giving someone results, and they came up, why didn't you find this article that had all the important words in the title? And I was like, oh, okay, so that, at least that came early in the career, and I learned fast. So a lot of PubMed isn't indexed, and it really affects how you search. So the index part, or Medline, has subject headings, and it has all those handy, I think of them as tags, I guess, male versus female, is indexed, age is indexed, human versus animal. All those article types except the systematic review filter depend on index or actions. So if you limit, if you limit to randomized controlled trials, you're only getting indexed articles. Fortunately, the systematic review filter, which will get you guidelines and consensus statements and systematic reviews and meta-analyses, is based on a filter that has keywords. And I think it has like the name of the Cochrane database, because those all seem to come up when I use it. I want to see the actual filter sometime, and I haven't found it yet. But. So when you're searching, when you've done a keyword search so that you can get pre-Medline and all those PubMed things that are there now because they have to represent everything in PubMed Central, and like the records for the Organ Drug Effectiveness Project, which they aren't even journal articles, but they're big major reports that people want to see. When you want those records, then you have to do a keyword search, and you have to remember not to limit to males or age or human versus animals, and not to limit to any article type except systematic review. But fortunately, they do have the language indicators in those unindexed records. You've got publication dates. You can use the systematic review limit. And you do have some of those keywords in the title, journal title, abstract. And you can limit it to that subset. So if you've done already a thorough subject heading search and you've looked at the dates of introduction for your subject headings and you think it covers the relevant period, you can then just limit your keyword search to the part that isn't indexed by adding not Medline with a subset tag.
Huh, I never knew that.
Well, good.
Interesting.
So that'll find all the unindexed records.
Okay.
That applies
Cool.
like to catch all the very, very recent stuff that hasn't been indexed.
Right.
Yeah, okay.
And you know, some of the stuff that isn't indexed is ancient also.
Right.
But,
Yeah. And why is it? Because sometimes, yeah, you'll find something that's relevant from 2013, but it wasn't indexed.
and some of those are things that are in PubMed Central
Okay.
that just aren't in Medline indexed journals,
Okay.
and so they'll never get indexed. Some of them.
And then those would be found using this. So
Yeah.
So you run your keyword search and you put not Medline brackets SB.
Right.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
What's SB? What's SB?
The SB, I think, stands for subset.
Okay.
Huh.
Okay.
So that's been really helpful to me along the way.
I never knew that, Cindy. How interesting.
That's because I always tell, like what you just said, is our students or fact when they're searching to do, when they do a thorough mesh search, you still got to look for it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
That's great.
Yeah, you do a thorough mesh search, you still do have to do that keyword search.
Yeah. Okay.
Oh, I'm so glad some of you didn't know everything I was going to say. When I indicated interest in this topic, I wasn't necessarily indicating interest in hearing me talk about it, but,
And here we are.
But and so I'm glad somebody kind of heard that. They've really worked on this advanced search feature, and this is something I teach students because now you can actually pick the title field, and you could even OR terms in here, and they would put the title tag behind each term. As long as you don't have parentheses in there, it puts them after the parentheses. But at first, it would only put in one title tag at the end of whatever you put in, and they have improved it. So, but in this case, if I was doing this search for this professor, I might just put in epoprostenol as a title term and hope I'd catch everything that you really cared about, that was really central. And add that not Medline. I might use the edit feature to put the not Medline up here, or I might use the not and do it that way. I like this box because you can make it bigger, really handy. So if I do this search, I get 21 results. So not too bad to look through. And I haven't bothered to try and knot out the surgical things. I could do that if it was a large number, but with 21, I would just browse through them. On the other hand, that's not a very thorough search. And if you are doing a thorough drug search, and this is something I teach pharmacy students, it's my liaison responsibility, and they do a systematic review as third years. So I'm forced to teach them to do thorough drug searches. So you're going to suffer a little because of that.
That's okay.
If you're doing a really thorough drug search, you'll find 99% of the literature with the English generic name, especially if you put an asterisk kind of at the end of the discernible part so that you'll pick up the foreign generic names. But there are a few drugs where the alternate names are really important. And in the examples here, I've used the AZT, which was the first drug used for HIV. You would want the English and foreign generic names, and I believe that was zidovudine for AZT. You want the scientific name if it's easy to say or write, which is zidothiamidine. Really easy to say, so it was used a lot in the literature. You want the standard abbreviations like ACT. And then if you're worried about the preclinical literature, you have to include the investigational names. And those don't have a standard format. Like if you use a CAS registry number, you don't have to fool with the hyphens. The hyphens will always be there. But if you use these investigational names, the authors type them any way they want to. So they might have the hyphen, they might have a space between the company designation and the number designation, or it might be one word. And then there are other compounds. I think for zidovudine, the compound S had been used. There are US and foreign trade names like Retrovir and Exavir. And there's a CAS registry number. You don't have to worry about the CAS registry number if you're searching titles and abstract, because nobody's going to put that in those places. But if you're also searching indexing terms, you might want to toss that in. Places that you can get these terms. The most important of them will be in the MeSH database in the entry term list. Or if you have Embase, Emtree, Relevant Record and Emtree has a lovely synonyms list that you can get things from. And if you're at a place that has drug information resources and you happen to have Martindale's, it's a great source. So let's see, I'll start with the MeSH database. And I spend a lot of time teaching, first-year students who don't have much experience with terminology. So this is a great place to teach people also to get those alternate terms. So for epoprostenol, you can find the record and then you can copy these alternate terms, and if you do a paste special, you'll even get them without all the ugly bullets and stuff in your Word document. I recommend that people take off words like sodium or calcium or whatever from the drug names, because if somebody talks about it as epoprostenol, you can get the epoprostenol sodium with just epoprostenol, and most people won't talk about the salt when they're talking about it. I personally, and I'd love to hear your opinions, I probably wouldn't search for this parenthesis 5C, comma. You could put it in quotes and it might not mess up the search, but in general, I find that search engines can't handle anything that complicated very well, but you might differ. So I don't know. In quotes, it probably wouldn't mess it up too much anyway. So I'd end up with this, and I would probably put an asterisk after epoprostenol. If you spend a lot of time with generic names, the epoprostenolom is, I can predict that that's one of the foreign generic names. And I put the things with a space in them into quotes. And now you can easily convert this to a search statement with replace all. You just replace the line return with, and you can get you can get the line return. There's usually a special thing in the advanced part of the replace all. And I couldn't show it because I couldn't capture it, but paragraph mark is one of those. And it'll put this _P into your box, or you can type that in. And then you can replace it with space or space. And it instantly produces this for you. So I don't spend a lot of time producing these big long search statements I tend to produce for drugs. I use replace all a lot. So that's just the entry terms in MeSH. So if I put those all in as title terms and still take out not medline, I'm just going to add this to history to show you the difference. I go from 21 to 122 results. So it can make a difference, especially for a drug like epoprostenol, which is also called prostacycline, really commonly. So something to think about. Now, if you really need a great source for all these names, and you happen to have Martindale's, especially electronically, it's a great source. And you have to look at different forms of the drug. Always remember that English generic name. My students, that's the term they leave out most often because they're so focused on getting all those other weird names that they forget the most important name. But if you get that, and then I would leave out this really complicated chemical name because nobody's going to want to type that in their article.
No, they're not.
And you could put the CAS in or not. They have a nice list of synonyms here and the investigational name. You can see that they have the US generic name, which is what I already have there, and the foreign names, and epoprostenol is a little different. So if I didn't have that truncated and represented already, I'd copy that. And then they have all these single ingredient preparations. So I copy this. And I used to find it really frustrating to have to take out all these country names. Yeah. But you can make a word macro that you have to record it once, but then it will take them all out for you with one click of the button. So, yeah, and I put the steps for recording a word macro in the handout. So I won't show it to you now, but if I click a button, I would get the other terms. I'm going to get a few more terms first before I go back to the word macro. So I would do this one. I also might go to Embase and search Mtree and get these synonyms from Mtree. If you have SciFinder, you could also go to the SciFinder registry record and get these. I usually stick with Martindale's and figure I've done a reasonable job. But you could add all of these things. Now, as I said, you have to get rid of all of these. And if you do it by hand, it does take a long time. But you can record this word macro and click, and they all go away.
Oh.
So it takes a while the first time, but you base your recording on a drug that has things from almost all the countries, and then I can send you also. I could send you the code for the macro, and you can just paste it in.
Okay, I like that better.
Okay. And then with this, you can do replace all to turn this into a search statement and convert text to table and stuff a few times really quickly. So I replace the punctuation marks first with line returns so that I have a list like this that I can convert into a table. And then I can sort that table, and I can get rid of the extras that way. And I can go through and truncate and add quotes as I need because I see them so clearly on separate lines. It's easier.
It's easier reading.
Yeah. And then I convert it back to text. And then I replace all my paragraphs with the space for space. And really, usually this takes less than 10 minutes to do the whole thing.
I look how you've reduced that.
Yeah. So, okay, so I would copy this. And then, I don't know if you've found that you can avoid autocorrection by using an all tag at the end. But if you're doing a complicated drug search, I highly recommend that because it'll take the brand names and it'll turn them into things that have no relation to what you're interested in at all. So, especially if you're working with students and teaching them to do this because they end up crying when that happens. So I've added the all, and I'm still using that headline. And I put it in the search, hitting search. And okay, this produces 184 results, 1,000 results.
Yeah.
But most of these are not relevant. And this took me a while to figure out too.
Holy cow.
So why are they not relevant? And then I finally discovered the search details page. I don't know how much you all use this, but
I know.
so if you find irrelevant results, I highly recommended using that see more under the search details box. And especially checking quoted phrases not found in translations. So here's the see more.
Okay.
And the ones that really cause problems are the quoted phrases not found that also have a part of that phrase that is in the phrases not found list. So in this case, the investigational name U space 53217A it doesn't mean it's not in PubMed, the fact that it's just in quoted phrases not found, because you probably know that PubMed doesn't really do an adjacency search. It puts your phrases through a list of phrases that it has agreed to recognize.
Yeah.
So this hasn't made this list, but the fact that 53217A isn't there probably might mean the term isn't there. But what happens if you leave this in is that, I mean, with this term here, the U53217, it'll break that up and and it. And you'll probably get relevant things out of that anding. But with this, where it doesn't find the 53217A, it ends up essentially oring it. And it treats you as a synonym for your drug name.
Oh, so that's why you get all that.
Yeah. And so at that point, I have students take those terms. I just have them take the not quoted phrases not found that are drug names out. You also need to look at the translations. I don't know if any of you have ever searched for PD as a synonym for Parkinson's disease, but it's translated to pharmacology. So it really messes your search up.
Oh, yeah,
So it's worth looking at these to see, because it'll translate certain things to journal names and author names, and it's worth checking. And to get rid of that translation, you can just add a TIAB tag or put it in quotes or truncate it. Any of those things stop translation. So I'm back up here and I'm just going to take both of those terms out and search again. The other thing I have trouble with when I teach students to go to this page is they start using this and it's like, I have no idea what you started with. I cannot tell from that. But anyway, so I go back up here and change it and hit search. And now I'm down to 1,100.
Okay, that's a much more manageable.
Yeah.
Still a lot.
Still a lot, but yeah. And most of these are relevant, almost all of them. I mean, I have, at this point, I could say, I could make them title terms. I'm not doing that at this point, or I could now not out the surgical terms if it was whatever. Anyway, any questions on that?
Interesting.
Okay. Thanks. This is fun. Okay. All right, and now this is a tip that I heard early on in my searching career from someone from the Chicago-based RML was teaching in Kentucky. And they said, based on the way indexers index articles, you can force relationships, and you've probably all done this, but you can force relationships between concepts based on how they are expected to index. So like if you want a disease caused by a certain drug, you use that disease with etiology because it's about the cause of that disease, with the drug, with adverse effects. And I've also included their suggestions in your handout for a disease causing another disease and a drug used to treat a disease. But anyway, this can be, I usually have students suggest that students try this and try starting with it. I have a whole half semester to teach them this stuff, so.
Oh, wow. So yeah, you're not doing this in one day.
Yeah, no, but so with this skin diseases caused by celecoxib search, this is maybe where I would start because a lot of skin diseases are treated by celecoxib, and that's the majority of the literature, or prevented by it. So, but it only brings up these two results, and I'm pretty sure there's more. And I could then go to taking off the subheadings, but I would get all that literature that's irrelevant. So I might try, I'd probably add these to a clipboard, and then I might go on to use the similar articles search for a bit. And you can search for both similar articles for both of these at the same time using this find related data feature. I don't know if you all have used that. So you change this drop down to PubMed, and then you don't have to check the ones unless you're only interested in part of what's shown, and then you find related items based on that. Now frequently, I mean, it's nice if you can stick with this view and if the most relevant stuff's at the top, but sometimes they find you skin diseases that aren't related to celecoxib right away. And you've probably noticed already that you can go to the advanced page and then put the number for the similar article search up here. So this would be number 65, and I can and it to the terms that are really important to me. I can even not out my previous search, so I'm not seeing things again. And I found these. And you can keep repeating that, adding these to the clipboard, going back to the clipboard, searching on these, etc. You can keep repeating that. It's one way to go. And after repeated cycles, I finally got up to 25 articles. So that was better. There's another related articles feature in PubMed that I just heard about it recently in a webinar. And it only works with PubMed Central articles. And at least I think it only works with those. If you scroll down on the right for those, they have this related information, and they have an articles frequently viewed together feature, sort of like shopping on Amazon, you know.
I've never done that.
And I've tried it several times, and I have to say I haven't found it overwhelmingly useful. I'm like, why did they look at these at the same time? but I'm sure someday when it gets more populated, I'm guessing it'll probably get more and more useful as time goes on. They also have a link to the references for the article and a link for other articles in PubMed Central that have cited this article. So sometimes that can be useful. And also Google Scholar, you just take the title, go to Google Scholar, and hit that cited by
Yeah.
link, and then you can search within
And
the
sometimes
citing.
that might be quicker.
And that's sometimes quicker, yeah. There's also times, oh, and if you're signed in, you can add things to your library too. And when you're done, you can go to My Library and you can select all of them and you can put them in a citation manager at the same time. Okay. But sometimes even I've finally gone to a keyword search and I'm like, why didn't we do this in the beginning? And again, with skin diseases, to get the terms for it, I would probably go through MESH to use the entry terms and the narrower terms. So I see dermatoses is here, and in the definition even it mentioned epidermis and dermis, which might be useful terms, and I've got all these narrower terms. And I would use the same techniques I used with drugs to get a quick word together list. And if there were eponymous names, I tend to put an asterisk out of the name trunk before the S, even if the S is part of the name.
Yeah.
And because some people might think it's an apostrophized, name.
Yeah.
If it's Smith, you can't do this, but yeah. Okay, so I just did all that and did all that, but you can take advantage of the fact that I've done this previously. I have a search strategies blog. I don't know if any of you have used it or seen it, but you can go, and there are several other sites that have shared search strategies, but mine is more like, okay, I did this, I spent some time on it, and I don't want to do it again. It might not be, it's not vetted yet, but you could take it as a starting point. So if you go to Google and you put in site:/PubMedSearchStrategies.blogspot.com and you search for skin, this will be one of the things that comes up, and you can just copy it and use it. And I have 80 followers. But there are other people who are authors too, and if you want to post your own search strategies, I would be happy to make you authors. And you can then write comments about how bad my searches are.
We would never do that.
No, people who live in glass houses.
Yeah. One thing I think that's really helpful too, and you might, if you were a new librarian, you might not think of, is that if you limit things to the title, it's almost like having a proximity search. So celecoxib induced or related or associated, you need all of those terms. Or it might, instead of saying celecoxib induced, it might say these skin diseases were induced by celecoxib. And you don't want to have to type in all of those phrases, induced by celecoxib, celecoxib induced, related to celecoxib, it's just too much. So if you're doing one of those searches where you don't have to find everything in the world, and you want to find things that are focused on that, it's worth trying to start with limiting your celecoxib term to the title and your induced or associated or related to the title, etc. And so I did that. And I got 31 results and wished I had started there instead of all that related article thing. Some of them aren't relevant, but most were.
Yeah, but for 31, you look through that easily.
Yeah, right. So, did you have other keyword tips you wanted to share? Or?
This is interesting.
Okay.
We also use EBSCOhost because it does have, as a double check, because it does have the proximity search.
Right.
It's very helpful. And Google Scholar, I usually tell them if they really need to be comprehensive to go through like the first 3 to 5 pages, you'll see when it drops off.
Right.
And we also have, the thing I like is the Web of Science. We also can do, put the author in and proximity.
What I like to do with Web of Science, if you find some highly relevant stuff, like, especially for stuff where you can't find much, I like running like a cited reference search, finding a highly relevant, and then running it back, through PubMed or Medline and finding index terms you hadn't thought of initially.
Right.
Okay, so I need to repeat some of these for.
our audience.
So, okay, so Creighton has EBSCOhost and uses it sometimes because it allows proximity searching, which we also do at UNMC on occasion. We have Embase also, so sometimes we start there because of proximity. Jeannie and Cindy's mentioned that. Jeannie mentioned that in Google Scholar, to be comprehensive, going through the first 3 pages or 3 to 5 pages of results is something she suggests to students, and I certainly agree, and I do that myself because it's so easy to miss something that'll pop right up there. And John?
Yes.
Mentioned that Web of Science is great. You've got the proximity searching, and you might have mentioned something else, but you can also then look at the cited references and take those titles back to PubMed and then find out how PubMed index goes. Did that describe it?
Yes.
Yeah. Those
Web
are all
of
great.
Science does cover more the peer-reviewed open access, and that's getting to be important now too.
Okay. So Web of Science is covering more of the peer-reviewed open access.
So if you're doing the citation search, you may pull up some of that stuff that might have been missed because it's not indexed in PubMed.
Okay, so
Sorry.
Especially with the cited reference searching, they're looking at what those articles, those open access articles are citing, or
correct,
because they're indexing now more of those. That's interesting. We had Web of Science quite a while ago at UNMC before we got Scopus, and it seemed pretty confined. They're probably adding more content.
Do you like Scopus better than Web of Science?
I wouldn't say that. I was asked whether I liked Scopus more than Web of Science. We never had them together, I don't think, or not for very long.
Right.
And we weren't yet doing systematic reviews, I think, when we made the switch. So I wasn't as focused on which of these will get me everything. You know.
Neither will.
Yeah.
but
Neither will, no.
Neither, yeah.
And
I also often suggest that if you have Cochrane, go into Cochrane first and see what terms databases in a related area. So, because that'll get you a lot of match terms and other terms that you might have
at the same time.
At the same time.
I'd never thought of using Cochrane that way.
Yeah, that's a good
So,
idea.
And the databases.
Run that by me again, Judy. How do you use Cochrane?
I haven't suggested they start by going into Cochrane, do a search, pull up some relevant or related records, and then look at the strategies for the databases and the terms that they used.
Okay.
And that helps to, they can usually find a lot of other terms and databases and resources that they wouldn't know.
That's a good point.
Normally.
I wasn't even thinking that you were saying that. So I'll tell you what Jeannie was really saying. So Jeannie mentioned that she suggests to students or groups that are looking for relevant research to start with Cochrane database of systematic reviews and see if there's a Cochrane review that covers or is relevant to your topic, and see which resources they searched as well as the search strategies they used. And when you said Cochrane Library, I thought, oh, and Cochrane in the Central Register of Controlled Trials has PubMed and Embase in one place. And you can see where they got the record and what terms they indexed them with too.
Yeah.
So that's a great thought. Okay. Oh, I guess that is everything. Okay, so let's see. Does anybody in Zoom that's zooming in have questions or comments? You'd have to. Hi, Christy. Okay, well, I think that's all I had. So.
Well, thank you.
Thank you for coming.
I've learned several things.
Oh, good. So some people learned.
And you recorded this so we can go back and view it again.
Yes.
Yes. Wonderful.
Great.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you so much for coming, and thank you to all of you online who came too. I really appreciate it.
Thanks, Cindy.
Thanks. Bye.
So Jeannie, you're looking